Hi everyone, Nick here, and just wanted to take about 10 minutes or so and just kind of go through the Writer's Lens assignment, which, as I've shared many times, this is an assignment about reading like a writer rather than reading like a reader. And I sort of did this a little bit last week in the To Kill a Mockingbird video, the week one video, and then I picked the To Kill a Mockingbird passage that I shared. But I'm going to do it for A Sound of Thunder this week. And so if you watch this video, feel free to use this video as kind of the start of your assignment for the week. And in a way, you can kind of consider me giving you a little bit of a freebie here, just because I do want to help out. I don't want the assignment to be too confusing, but I realize it is kind of confusing. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk you through this assignment and this reading and what I would do if I was doing the Writer's Lens number 2. So obviously the first thing you need to do is open up A Sound of Thunder, and you need to read the whole thing. I'm going to discuss A Sound of Thunder as if you are aware of the whole storyline. And so if you haven't read the whole story, I really, really want you to read the whole story before watching this video. I'm not really going to summarize this. I'm going to assume you've done the reading. And in the same way, when you complete the Writer's Lens assignment, you can assume that I've read this. You don't need to summarize anything, okay? You don't need to tell me about the story. You don't need to tell me some synopsis of A Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury is about a guy named Eccles who goes back in time. Do not include that. We are going to simply agree we've read it, and we're going to talk about this as a piece of writing that we're going to look at together for writing purposes. So, Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury. And it's a little bit hard to critique something this famous, but we're going to do it. And I already have my thoughts on what I would do differently if I were to write this over. We get introduced right here with a very common convention of sci-fi and fantasy writing. We're getting setting details and character details, okay? We're getting the setting, which must be in the future because it's a time travel story, and we're seeing the sign on the wall is quavering under a sliding water film. We're beginning to picture something. This is what the sign says. We can picture that sign. And then in the midst of this setting, we're introduced to our main character, Eccles. And Eccles, as you know from reading this, he gets shot at the very end. And here's my question. There was a sound of thunder, okay? Travis, the safari guide, lifts the rifle, clicks the safety catch, and shoots and kills Eccles, we assume. I wonder, did any of you even care that Eccles dies? I know when I read this story, one of my biggest critiques of it is Eccles is never made likable enough for me to care that he gets shot. Okay, so what do I mean by that? I cannot relate to Eccles. I am not able, he's the main character in a short story. It's a 12-page short story. There's not a huge amount of time for me to begin getting to know Eccles in a deep way. But I really think Ray Bradbury misses it here. He introduces Eccles right away. Eccles felt his eyelids blink over his stare, and the sign burned in this momentary darkness. Warm phlegm gathers in his throat, and he pushed it down. The muscles around his mouth form a smile as he put his hand out and he pays $10,000. And then he asks, do I come back alive? And then he gets introduced to the other main character, Mr. Travis. Eccles glances across the tangle of wires. He thinks back to the advertisement, and then they get into the time machine, and then they go back in time, and they're told don't step off the path. Nothing happens here that actually makes me interested in Eccles at all as a person. Okay? And that's where I think Ray Bradbury misses it. And if I were to rewrite this, character development is what I would change. So if I'm completing my writer's lens assignment, I'm probably going to focus on this the entire time. I'm going to say something along these lines. You know what? Let me just do it. Let me just open up a Google Doc and start writing it so you guys can watch. So untitled document, I'll call this writer's lens 2, a sound of thunder. Nick is my name. You put your name down on yours, and I'm just gonna start typing right away. A sound of thunder. A sound of thunder by Ray Bradbury is a very famous story because it leads to the concept of the butterfly effect, which is popular in science classes and science fiction writing alike. Okay, it's a time travel narrative, so it's interesting. This is popular, but I would change it. However, if I were writing this story myself, there is one thing that I would do much differently than Bradbury. Okay. This is the assignment. What would you do different? What's the shortcoming of the story that you would fix? And the thing that I would fix is Eccles' characters. In my opinion, Eccles is not a relatable or likable character at all. Spelled likable wrong. When, oops, caps locks. When he is shot at the end of the story, I literally feel nothing. And that's just the truth, right? Typically, if you're going to be writing these creative stories, if you have a character die, you really want your audience to care. You really want it to have some impact, right? To me, Eccles' death is one of the smallest parts of this story, and it should be bigger. So I literally feel nothing. I have no attachment or connection to Eccles, so his death is absolutely... let me rewrite. His death feels like a detail of the story, not the conclusion of the story, not the impressionable conclusion. I'm thinking out loud as I type, right? I'm doing this assignment. My brain juices are flowing. Not the impressionable, memorable conclusion of the story that it likely was meant to be, right? I have to imagine that Bradbury wanted his death, like Eccles' death, to be kind of like this crescendo of the story, a sound of thunder, right? This is supposed to be a big deal. This is supposed to be something that jars us and makes us remember the story. Like, oh my goodness, he gets shot at the end. Nobody even remembers that part. And it's because Eccles is so boring. Okay, so here's how I do it. Part of the reason that Eccles is such a bland and unrelatable character is because it seems like Bradbury skips over an in-depth introduction to Eccles' character. Right, and I'm going to go back to the text here. We never get like 2 or 3 paragraphs telling us about Eccles. We get he felt his eyelids blink over his stare. He gets spit in his throat and he swallows it. He asks some questions. we think back to, we get a flashback to him thinking about his decision to do this. My title. We never get a paragraph or two, better yet, describing him. So part of the reason Eccles is such a bland and unrelatable character is because it seems like Bradbury skips over the in-depth introduction to Eccles' character. We never actually get any direct character building. Characterization would be the correct term here. We never get any direct characterization for Eccles. Instead, the story just moves along. Bradbury seems to want to start the time travel narrative as quickly as possible, and it comes at the expense of making his characters thorough. To fix this, I would add probably 2 paragraphs, if I'm honest. 2 paragraphs to give us a connection and picture of Eccles. Okay. I might write these. I could try writing them, but I might just tell you guys instead what I would just do if I were to write them. And you can decide, do you want to actually rewrite it yourself, or do you want to just tell me what you'd do if you were to rewrite it? Either is fine. But, okay, so we're going to add 2 paragraphs to give us a connection and picture of Eccles. In the first paragraph, I would simply give the reader some descriptive details about Eccles' appearance and perhaps personality. I would describe some of his interests other than hunting. Man, he's such a flat character. All he does is hunt. That's all we get. So he doesn't seem real. I'd describe some of his interests other than hunting. If he has a family, I would include that. As it currently reads, Bradbury's only characterization of Eccles is that he likes to hunt and is somewhat involved in politics. Okay? That's literally it. That's all. That's super flat. That is super annoying. Like, yeah, there's nothing there. So give descriptive details about his appearance and personality. I would describe some of his interests other than hunting. If he has a family, I would include that. Okay? Why? By adding these details about his personal life, his death would really seem more significant. Okay. Next, in paragraph 2. In paragraph 2, I think I would make Eccles more unsure about his decision to time travel. And here's why. When you give characters a sense of regret or uncertainty about their decision that they're going to make, and then the decision doesn't turn out, it's very impactful. And when you give a really, really, really sad illustration, that's a real illustration, it's not a writing example, but if you guys recall, over the summer, there was like a submarine that was doing an exploration of the Titanic, and it imploded. And I'm about to sneeze, excuse me. Excuse me. There was that submarine that went, and it was exploring the remains of the Titanic, and there was like an 18-year-old boy or 17-year-old boy that went with his dad in the submarine. And obviously, it imploded and he was killed, and everybody was killed. And we later learned that this boy had told his mom that he was scared to go on the submarine. And that made national news that he had had this conversation. That's a really interesting thought right there. It made national news that the boy was uncertain about going, but went anyway to please his dad. And that all of a sudden made everybody in the world who read that article feel this immense sympathy, right? So when you make somebody uncertain about something and then they do it anyway, but it doesn't work out, you somehow make a really sympathetic character. I don't exactly get why, but that's just how we're wired. So I think in the second paragraph too, I shouldn't say paragraph two, I should say in the second paragraph I write, I think I would make Eccles more unsure about his decision to time travel. Probably the best way to do this, I would maybe include a brief flashback or callback to one of his invented family members asking him not to go. Okay, that makes him selfish for going anyway, but that also makes the fact that he's rethinking the decision makes him more sympathetic. And then when he gets shot at the end, it gives us some reason to grieve. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna write that. So do this. I'd maybe include a brief flashback collections. Perhaps I would include a short sentence or two where his daughter, which I'd have to invent his daughter, right? I'm a writer, I can do that, where his daughter asks him not to go because she's scared. Okay. This way, when he decides to go on the safari anyway, we view him differently. Yes, we view him as more selfish, but we also view him as having more to lose. Okay? By adding these two paragraphs, perhaps readers would actually connect with Eccles slightly. If nothing else, maybe we could feel sympathy for him. Ideally, I would want my readers to have an emotional reaction of some sort. It could be very minimal, but of some sort when Eccles is shot at the end. This would make the sound of thunder that concludes the story. I shouldn't capitalize that. It's not a title. It's literally a line from the story. It's the sound of thunder. I think it's A. Make the sentence a sound of thunder that concludes the story more impactful. Yeah. So this is what I would do if I were to rewrite it. I would add two paragraphs and I'd make Eccles a better character. It'd probably go somewhere in here. Maybe right here. Warm phlegm gathered in Eccles' throat. He swallowed and pushed it down. He could not help but feel nervous. His daughter had asked him not to go. The muscles around his mouth formed a smile as he put his hand slowly out upon the hair, and that hand waved a check for $10,000 to the man behind the desk. Does this safari guarantee I come back alive? Eccles was A great hunt. No, I'm not. We'd probably have that description right around here. You don't actually have to tell me where you're going to put your paragraphs or your additions or whatnot. I just think I want, this type of thing right here is what I want. And hopefully you guys can kind of picture what I'm thinking. Having more character development for Eccles, I think, would make the story better. We could say that about Mr. Travis as well. We could change the story in a lot of ways, but this is how I would change it. So if I were completing this assignment, this would be ultimately my what I would turn in right here is something along these lines. And I think this would be a pretty good way to rewrite A Sound of Thunder after reading it and deciding what I think could be changed or improved. So that is how you do this assignment. And I hope this video helps. You have to think critically. Quite frankly, you have to think as the writer of the story. You have the ability to do anything. You can create characters. You can create connections. You can make characters more relatable. You can make the theme more important. You can add symbolism. There's lots of things you can do as a writer, and you have to decide which of those you want to do in this story to make it better. Hopefully this video helps you guys. Yeah, let me know if you need any help on this assignment though. See ya.